950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Of course, Michael Brodkorb is kind enough to join us with our update on the Vikings. We do a Vikings update during the season with our official Vikings correspondent, Michael Brodkorb, as well as also occasionally talk a little politics with him. And that's where we'll start today. Hey, Michael, how are we today?
It's great to be here today, Matt.
I'm doing well. I just want to ask you, we've got 4 days here until the election. I just saw your post, by the way, about the Drudge Report's headline about this. It's amazing. Yeah, going after the attack on Liz Cheney. Your thoughts, on Minnesota? I mean, we had the KSTP poll that came on out that said that was it 8 points there. Another poll came on out that said it was 10 points. They keep bringing up the Rasmussen polls, like Rasmussen, which are not even rated; they're unreliable, and they're still trailing in those polls. There, I'm feeling Minnesota's pretty safe for the Democrats at this point, and for Harris and Walz. Your thoughts as well?
Very safe. In the interest of disclosure, I have endorsed Harris and Walz. As a Republican, there is no evidence that I can see that Trump is in any position to win this state. The Trump campaign just announced 12 additional stops they're making in the final 80 hours of the campaign. Newsflash, they're not coming to Minnesota. They're spending more time in New Mexico than they are Minnesota. And so that's a realization that Minnesota is out of reach. And I think there's going to be some trouble here in Minnesota for Minnesota Republicans that are supporting Trump. Because not all Republicans are supporting Trump. But for Republicans that are backing Trump, and you have a U.S. Senate candidate by the name of Royce White who's going to lose, Republicans are going to continue their statewide losing streak. And this fun that they've had in the presidential race has been for naught, because Minnesota is not going to go for Trump. They're going to lose a U.S. Senate race because of who they've endorsed and because of the strength of Senator Klobuchar. And the party's in a tough position. And so they have to. There's going to be a lot of reforms needed post-election by the Republican Party of Minnesota because they need to shape up.
Well, and we're looking at the Minnesota House. I mean, it's. I mean, I see where they're at. I mean, they're putting out literature that doesn't have Royce White or Trump on it, especially in the suburbs, particularly. They're banking. Their plan is basically. They're putting themselves as moderates. I mean, they very much are running against their own party at this point, a little bit like Angie Craig is down in two. And so you get a little bit of this idea of, I mean, are you going to get enough people that are going to vote for, say, Amy Klobuchar or Kamala Harris, and then turn around and vote for a Republican in the House and Senate race, that one Senate race out in the West Metro? I don't think that that's going to happen. I know that Senate race is a little different. There's a lot of money being spent by the Republican candidate, but still, Ann Johnson Stewart's a pretty popular Democrat in that district.
Yes, I think the best opportunity for Republicans is some legislative gains. I think what they need, what House Republicans need at the legislative side, is they need the race for president, I think, to be under 5 points. I think that's the key. And it may be, but I don't believe that Minnesota is in any chance to flip for Trump. Because if it was, the Trump campaign right now is looking, I think, they're doubling down on going back to North Carolina. They're concerned. Either candidate can't afford to lose some states, and any opportunities you have to potentially expand the map in the last few hours, the last few days of the campaign, Trump campaigns will be taking advantage of that. But as I said, a bunch of new rallies just announced by the Trump campaign, and none are in the land of 10,000 lakes.
In New Mexico, why are you even going to New Mexico?
Well, some immigration issues, but again, there's also some congressional districts down there that they're focused on that are somewhat similar to Minnesota. The bottom line is I think that there's been a lot of talk, a lot of reckless hype about whether Minnesota was competitive for the Trump campaign, and the reality is it's not.
I will also say this, and I think you just brought up a very good point. What's the number? If Harris and Klobuchar, if neither one of them are within 5 points, it becomes impossible for, I think, the Republicans to pick up the Minnesota House. They might get that Senate seat, but I think that's unlikely either. I would probably say 4 points. Because that's a pretty big ask. 4% of the voting population switching their vote to a different party there, still within the realm of possibility. But I agree for sure 5 points. If Harris wins Minnesota by more than 5, Klobuchar wins by more than 5, which he will, then at that point it's just the math is too hard for the Republicans to pick up the Minnesota House.
I've been consistently saying to people this is a flip of a coin, and there's probably never been an election I'm more interested in seeing where we are in terms of polling data, why people decided to make the decisions that they did. Independent of who wins, it's going to be fascinating to look at.
Let's go to the Vikings, if we may.
Man, you've blown it the last couple weeks.
Well, Thanks for that. I was not so concerned about the Detroit game. That was a good team at home, still a loss, but a good team. The Rams game really bugged me because that's not really a good that's not a good team. And the question I have is, how is Blake Cashman that important to our defense that with him out because of his injury, that the defense basically is lost out there?
It might be. Thankfully we have the Colts on Sunday evening now. So that should be a good recalibration game. But it was frustrating to watch, very frustrating to watch. And the defense has performed. I want to be fair as much as I can be. If you were telling me this many games in, where we would be in the standings, where would be our record standpoint? We're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
We're in a pretty good spot. We're 5-2. Yeah, we're 5-2. But our division is great this season. The NFC North is really strong, and so we got to win. But thankfully we're coming into a soft part of our schedule. We have the Colts on Sunday, we have the Titans, the Cardinals, and then we have the Bears, the Packers, and then unfortunately the Lions one more time. I can see the Vikings. The Vikings, they have a win over. They've already beaten the Bears, right? Yeah, they beat the Bears.
No, they beat the Packers. They beat
the Bears.
No, the Vikings. The Vikings haven't played the Bears yet, haven't they?
Oh, they haven't.
No,
okay. So they've beaten the
Packers.
They've beaten the
Packers, and then they lost. They beat the Packers, lost to the Lions.
So we gotta, I think that we can beat the Bears.
Yes, I do too.
We also have a Falcons game in there. We got a Seahawks game in there, and Jaguars the following Sunday. And so, there's some real possibility for the rest of our schedule. I think that the Vikings are going to be a playoff team, and they're in the running for the division. And I have to be honest, 5-2 this far into the season, and having kind of a soft, aside from some division rivalries, having some real, I think, some opportunities with some other opponents to win. It's going to be exciting football. Mm-hmm. But the Vikings are in the driver's seat for their own destiny.
The number one seed from
contrary to what you've picked and stuff. Oh, remember, here's the thing, man. I just have to say, they won. The only reason I was tough on you this last two games is because remember the first season out of the gate. It's a must-win game. Yeah, you said it was a must-win game. The New York Giants' first game, must-win.
And it was, and they did, and so there we go. It set the tone.
Absolutely, my friend.
I will say this. The number one seed in the NFC is going to be an NFC North team. Without a doubt. It's either going to be the Vikings, the Packers, or the Vikings. The Vikings, Packers, or the Lions will be the number one seed. But the step down to the 5 and 6 seeds, which will be for their other two, is a pretty big step down. So you want to be that one seed. The Packers could kind of do us a favor this weekend if they can knock off Detroit. And then Detroit's got 2 losses, and we can win. I think that's an important thing. The question, obviously, and this is the real big one, Darisaw. Him going out. Freak accident. Kind of got rolled up under. Yep. He's gone. They went and got the Jacksonville kid as a backup, which is the sign you want to see. The Chiefs, Kansas City has had so many freaking injuries, and yet they're still unbeaten because they go out and get guys, and the Vikings are trying to replicate that a little bit, although it's going to be a pretty substantial step down at this point.
It is, but I have to say to you that where we're at right now in this season, in terms of some of the off-season moves that have been played, there's a lot to believe in this team, both in terms of the players on the field and the organizational structure with the coach, with the managing, with the entire ownership structure that's here. There's a lot of reasons to believe it in the Minnesota Vikings. And again, 5-2, we're in a great division. And it's just going to mean every Sunday, every Saturday, every Thursday, I think any games we have left, whenever they're playing, even on Monday night, it's going to be must-win football for the Vikings.
And not just that. Let's break it down even a little bit more. I think what we learned with the Rams is this: they've got to score every play. You've got to get some points every time you march down the field, because if you're going to have questions on your defense, then the way you win these games is outscore these other teams. And they've done that. They've done look pretty good. I'm not as concerned about this, although the line play, I'm going to be watching that a little bit more. They've got the weapons to basically take care of business. It's just now getting them back into clicking like they were in those first few weeks.
Absolutely. And I think this team is capable of it. And I think some of the midseason moves that they've made, bringing in some players, I think that this team, I'm feeling, it's 5-2, 2 losses in a row, but we have the Colts this weekend. And I'm feeling like this team is really, overall, between the coach, between the management, between the players, this organization is humming and it's going along well. 5-2. The big question I have for you is, it's the Lions Packers, right, this weekend?
Yeah.
So are we? What's? I mean, I want the Lions to lose, but I also want the Packers to lose.
Could we get a tie? Can we get a tie? Because ties mess up a lot of things for the guys that get ties.
Yeah, that's okay. Because I'm struggling there. I mean, I'm a glass half full guy, but I don't know what I guess I'm going to be positive for a tie.
Oh gosh, that's a tough call. Were you at the last Colts game here? That
I was
comeback?
at the last Colts game.
Wow.
I will be at the game on Sunday.
Wow, that was still one of the most magical moments in this franchise's history, to be down 33-0. And do you have a ball? Is that what you've got?
I have the football right there.
There you go.
They send out a ball. How do I do this? They send out a ball, and there it is. I have a ball here. The season ticket holders get. A charter season ticket member.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the game. 39-36.
Oh, pardon me, sir.
39-36. I was there with my daughter. My sister was sitting behind me, and she left.
Oh, she did?
But my daughter wanted to stay the entire time, and we saw a bit of history that game.
It was, and it should have never gone to overtime. How many touchdowns they overturned on us. Oh, those fumbles they overturned. That was an amazing comeback. That team
was an amazing comeback, but I have one sister. I have four sisters. One of my sisters has a nasty reputation for leaving Vikings game early just to get home, but boy, she missed a good game. That was fantastic to be at.
All right. What's your call here? Or do I?
You have to go first. We're not messing with the streak. You're 5-2, man. You're 5-2.
Well, that's not bad. I'm going to say this, and I don't want you getting upset. I think they're going to win, but I think this is going to be close. I think the Vikings are going to win. I think this is going to be. I think that the defense. God, I mean, these teams, the NFL teams are good. And sure, maybe not the Jaguars or Cleveland, but these teams.
Let's try to be reasonable here.
Yeah, so we keep things in perspective. But they're good, and the Colts are not the worst team I've seen. And as we know, if you go out and you take a team lightly, they're going to make you pay. And I think it's going to be close. I think the Vikings do win because it is at home. Sunday night, they get the national game. They correct the ship and kind of look towards the rest of these games coming up here. Take them seriously, score every time you go down the field, and just be done with it, because these teams can't keep up with that. If you score every time you go down the field, they can't keep up with it. But I think this is going to be one of those games where 30-27. The Vikings win 30-27.
Ooh.
I'm saying it's going to be close, man.
I'm not gonna challenge someone who's got us to 5-2 this season. But I think the Vikings are going to win. I agree with you. I'm just gonna be your XO. I'm going to turn the missile key when you tell me to.
Wednesday next week, you going to come on the show? We'll talk the results.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an active supporter of. I'm Republicans for Harrison Walls, so I might be in some re-education camp at that point. We don't know, but if I'm out and about and I'm able to talk, I'm certainly happy to come on. I don't know if they'll let me have a webcam in some re-education camp. We'll see. Hopefully we'll.
I'll see you in the internment. We'll be doing the show from the internment camp together.
Hey, that's right. We'll both be there. Matt, I just want to say in just closing, I just appreciate every opportunity to come on, whether it's talk about politics, whether it's about football. And I'm glad next week it'll be a surprise. Will I be at home or in an internment camp? Who knows?
We'll have you on twice next week. We'll have you on with the Vikes back again next Friday, and then we'll have you on Wednesday to talk the results in Minnesota. Michael Brodkorb, kind enough to join us. Thank you, Michael. We'll talk to you next week. We'll take a break. Come on back. Wrap up the show for a Friday. When we return, it is the Matt McNeil Show on your Friday.